I'll be honest, I didn't think Robin becoming a DJ is something I needed in my life, but it turns out it is. So please drop another album, Hoyoverse. But other than that, let's talk about 2.6 in the story quest in Penacony, or Penacony. Finally, there's a character that butchers names as bad as me. We actually got a ton of lore in this story quest, but a lot of different subplots. So it's easy to get lost in everything. We got memo keepers, we got new Emanators, we got the Galaxy Rangers, origins of different characters, get a bit more hints and insight with Robin the family, and some Sunday teasers, the direction they're gonna go in 2.7, since Sunday's going to finally be playable. So we'll get to see somewhat of a redemption arc for him. Let's break down what's going on in the story quest, but also talk about what it's building towards, because obviously we're in the middle patches of Honkai Star Rail leading up to our next big chapters in 3.0, and right now the game's building up different characters. So this quest starts out with the Astral Express going to give lectures and visit the Paperfold Academy within Penacony. And like the first 2 hours of the story quest, there's not really much to read into. There's just something amiss going on with the monkeys everywhere. They knew Boot Hill was in Penacony before they entered the dreamscape because he used Pom Pom's name. And when you meet Rappa, she's very obscure. She converts everything into ninja type language. And every single Galaxy Ranger seems to follow a trope, so to speak. Boot Hill's a cyborg cowboy, Rappa is somebody that raps and bases her whole life around being a ninja. Which seems like just a character choice at first glance, but it gets much more sinister and deep. But this whole thing centralizes around Dr. Primitive, who is an Emanator of Erudition, confirmed now. I actually talked about him in my potential Emanators video not that long ago, but I actually thought he might be Nihility. So I was right and wrong. I was right about him being an Emanator officially now, but I guess I was wrong about which Eon he's an Emanator of. I'll take it though. But what is really going on here? Well, Dr. Primitive has infiltrated Penacony and the Dreamscape with the help of a Memo Keeper. Dr. Primitive is not only an Emanator of Erudition, but he's Genius Society member 64. He's quite the notorious criminal throughout the galaxy, known for his mastery of gravity capture technology. Scroolum speculates that if he's even organic or a human, but probably an inorganic life form like himself. A lot of people assume with his obsession with monkeys and bananas that he is taking the form of a gorilla. This is also sort of hinted at the end of the story quest, getting some real Gorilla Grodd type vibes here. He is either a gorilla, or Scroolum speculates that he might be inorganic like himself. Maybe he's a robot-esque type character, or maybe he's a robot gorilla. We don't know for sure, and like his name Primitive suggests, he likes to revert society. The Galaxy Rangers have been hunting him for a long time. Not only is Dr. Primitive a notorious criminal, but he's excellent at keeping his distance and never directly involving himself with whatever he's up to. Very notorious for evading capture, but he is also an Emanator, so he's not somebody to be taken lightly. So he's been notorious for reverting planets back to their more primitive state. Regression is the answer, giving these planets new room to evolve, not only different but better in his own eyes. But it's very unethical, borderline cruel. He uses whole planets to test this, but that really is the way of the Eons and the Emanators. Emanators embody the Eons more than anyone in the galaxy, and Eons are a metaphysical path, not driven from right or wrong, but just an extreme ideal manifested into an entity. It has nothing to do with good or bad, which is why an Eon doesn't discriminate who is an Emanator. Erudition for the sake of erudition. Dr. Primitive commands whole organizations of followers and different divisions, usually referred to as apes, and has different locations of studies, called forests. The collection forest that abducts subjects for his experiments, the picnic forest which produces drugs, and the cultivation forest which specializes in gene editing. He thinks that civilization is a little bit too advanced now and is doomed to fail, and has no more room to evolve. Now obviously the whole arc of this story quest is to figure out what's going on in the infiltration that is Dr. Primitive, which is why Rappa and Boot Hill, who's there to help her, are even in Penacony to begin with. And obviously the Astral Express figures this out and decides to help. Dr. Primitive would weaponize something called the memetic virus, and would even use this to coerce Mr. Rekka to help smuggle a puppet proxy, Prof. Nana, and help bypass the family, who are indirectly emanators of the Harmony and obviously protect Penacony. So he was able to bypass their gaze and infiltrate Paperfold University and infect the Dream, turning citizens into monkeys, with the help of his so-called assistananas, who began promoting his will. Now this is where we get to Rappa, who's obviously trying to thwart his plans. But who is Rappa exactly? Well, she was a young girl that Dr. Primitive acquired at a young age, and he named her AKA-3, or Test Subject AKA-3. They did a ton of experiments on her, but she was special in that regard. A scientist working in one of the forest labs oversaw her development and did many different tests on her, utilizing genes from different species, and Rappa was able to resist the memetic corruption, which caught Primitive's attention. Despite the state of the lab, Kucha would nurture Rappa and give her ninja manga to read, growing somewhat attached to her and seeing her as more than just a test subject, but more so as a person. Rappa obviously being naive to all of this and all of her surroundings, being totally engrossed with the ninja manga. It would basically become her entire identity, and the way she talks. But they noticed how Kucha was being too lenient on Rappa, so they transferred Rappa to a new scientist named Umbra Headmistress. But as we know, Kucha and Rappa would disable the facility's security and send an alert to the Galaxy Rangers so they could raid it. But even before the Galaxy Rangers could really do some damage, Rappa had killed a ton of the scientists, 1000% engrossed into her manga character stereotype. And this is how she would join the Galaxy Rangers, and Rappa considered to be a failed experiment. But the enhancements and tests they run on Rappa still apply. She is still far stronger, has higher intelligence, critical thinking, and enhanced senses, and has a very deep-rooted urge for the hunt and revenge, but also justice. And much like she says, it seems that every Galaxy Ranger has their own criminal that they're hunting. The Galaxy Rangers are notorious for taking down very renowned individuals or ominous figures, like a Lord Ravager, an Emanator of Destruction, Boothill hunting one of the IPC board members and top-ranking people, as Waldo Schneider, who might also be an Emanator in his own right, and Rappa now hunting an Emanator of Erudition, Dr. Primitive. Seems the Galaxy Rangers go after the big fish, but Boothill was here to return a favor. Mr. Rekka did not like how he was being manipulated by Dr. Primitive and being coerced into helping him infiltrate Penacony, and he was a big part in helping us discover the truth. Also helping push Robin in Dreamflux Reef to use her powers of harmony and tuning to counter the effects of the virus. Everyone was already affected by the banana propaganda. Sounds like I'm making that up, but it's true. So instead of trying to convince everyone, using somebody that's an icon in Penacony and part of the family, Robin, by throwing an absolute banger of a party. Getting to watch her DJ and Boothill dance was honestly quite hilarious and awesome at the same time. Again, she is also an Emanator of the Harmony. But Emanators of the Harmony or the family members are a lot like the Hunt. But not only did Rekka greatly contribute to solving the Slumber Nana Monkey crisis, he gives Rappa some critical intel at the end as to where Dr. Primitive might actually be, which is a big deal because Dr. Primitive is notorious for never getting too close to the scene of the crime. And both the Intelligentsia Guild and the Genius Society other members note that Dr. Primitive seems to take a great pleasure in evading his pursuers. He's had many run-ins with the Galaxy Rangers before. We also got some interesting Boothill backstory. I do want to talk about the Galaxy Rangers in their own video, but basically Boothill used to be this pretty innocent kid, but it seems that even though he was more of an innocent kid, even before all the wrongdoings of the IPC and the hardships that he has suffered, he ultimately does not hesitate in the name of justice. As they tried to affect him with the virus, as they thought he would be an excellent test subject being a cyborg with insane willpower, he was able to resist the virus, even being reverted mentally in his kid-like state. the young boy in him was able to see the wrong and evil that was going on. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, they were not able to catch Dr. Primitive because, per his usual, keeping a very fair distance from the scene of the crime, he awakened and then left the Asdana star system, where Penacony is located, right after he deactivated the puppet, Prof. Nana. Now it is ultimately up to Rappa to continue the hunt and pursue him wherever he went. If Mr. Wrecker truly does have the intel on where he's actually going. If anyone would know, it would be another memo keeper. Seems that all memo keepers like to subtly break the fourth wall, which I guess makes sense considering the memo keepers are recording the entire history of the universe for fully the Eon of Remembrance, and all of this is just a giant story and play, like Rekka constantly references during this story quest. But where does that leave us with Penacony? I wasn't sure if they're going to set this up to be finished in 2.7. It seems that the Dr. Primitive villain arc, at least for Penacony right now, is wrapped up already and finished. Considering we know he left the Asdana star system and they sort of set up Rappa to go now and chase him, and now Boot Hill is going to chase Oswaldo Schneider. As for Penacony, they subtly hinted towards Sunday and how the family has lost a lot of the trust of people within Penacony. That is where I feel this story will continue, with Sunday having a redemption arc along with the family, and truly able to stabilize Penacony and its family with true unity. This is the planet of festivities, but everything about it has been far from pure harmony. But that is where I feel Sunday coming back as a playable character, us eventually going to be wrapping up with Penacony before we eventually go to 3.0 and wherever we're going next. This feels like a good direction in my opinion to continue the Penacony story quest before we ultimately leave. To leave Penacony and its family in a pure state of unity and harmony with all of its members, which will make Penacony a harder planet to infiltrate from wrongdoers, like Dr. Primitive or Order, which I guess is Sunday's fault. He didn't really penetrate the planet, he was already there. It definitely showed that Robin is trying to do the right thing. She definitely still has her doubts, but she was in Dreamflux Reef to begin with to teach young ones how to sing. And I think we're gonna finally see Sunday truly embrace the harmony. The irony being that Order is actually a part of harmony. It's one aspect of it, which is why Enna of Order was assimilated by Sheep Bay of Harmony to begin with. I do have a few videos I want to go over in the near future. I want to go over the Galaxy Rangers, their lore, as well as Boot Hill and Rappa expand on their lore. I also want to go over the Genius Society members in their own video, not just Dr. Primitive, but Scroolum, Herta, and all the others. With that said though, what did you think of this story quest? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.